Hello everyone, GM. Welcome to Web3 Magic Podcast. Here I talk with builders of some of the most interesting projects across Web3 space. Interesting by the use case, not by the price of a token. So let's warm up with music and let's jump into today's episode. Hello everyone, welcome to Web3 Magic Podcast. That's the podcast where I interview founders or co-founders of very cool Web3 projects. Actually, hopefully the ones which make sense. And today I'm here with Antoni. And, like many of my guests, I've met Antoni in Istanbul on DevConnect. And I love his story because when we met in Istanbul, he was new to crypto and they had a project which was supposed to do something. And then they decided to totally, shift gears, switch the topics and start working on something way cooler, still in crypto, which is great. So welcome, Antoni.
No, thank you. Glad to finally do this. We've been talking about this for a while. So yeah, it's good to make it happen. That's
true. We've been talking about it for a while because we were waiting for you guys to figure it out.
It's not pointing fingers now.
Yeah, sure. And I think, it goes to your credit that, you took time to figure it out. That doesn't happen that often. So typical question for the start. How did you get to crypto and when, even though I sort of, leaned into it at the beginning?
Yeah, no spoilers. How did I get into crypto? So I guess I started in the industry we just talked about this about 6 months ago. So what led me to that journey was basically a guy that I used to work with back early in my career when I just got started in cybersecurity. He had joined my cybersecurity startup it didn't last too long. This is the current founder of Nimble, the CEO. Mm-hmm. So him and I worked together for about a year in IoT security before he moved on. He was basically doing the grand tour of all of the big tech companies. So I think he was at Google, Facebook, and Uber. He's somewhere in between all of those big tech companies. He popped in to meet me. So that was, back in 2017. And we've kind of just stayed in touch. He had tried to poach me a few times in previous years to join other crypto startups, but the timing was just bad. So with this one, I was just very interested. I felt it was time in my career to do something a little more spicy. So it's kind of what led me to do this.
I see. Spicy meaning own startup or more risky.
Spicy meaning new technology, novel technology. So I had been moving around throughout IoT security companies, but honestly, there wasn't a lot of real innovation going on in that space anymore. Because even though things start out being technology, at the cutting edge, solving a new problem, and then the cutting edge moves, right? So if you start in an industry and then you stay in that industry for 10 years, and when you started, it was technology. It no longer really is, not in my definition anyways. It becomes you find product market fit, the company grows, a lot of people join. So innovation slows down and you basically just start creating little tiny iterative changes to your product as opposed to big steps. So what we're doing with Nimble, it's very much actually something new. There's nothing that exists like this yet. So I think that's what I mean by spicy.
I see. Okay. No, it totally makes sense. But I wanted to be sure I understand the definition of your spicy. So before we get to Nimble, have you done any of your own startups before, or this is the first?
No, I've done quite a few. I started doing, I started building websites trying to make money off the internet when I was 13 years old. So I was early Google AdSense days in 2005 or something. And I made enough money as a 12-year-old kid to buy myself a fancy bicycle and a paintball gun. So I've been going hard in tech since I was very young. But my first attempt at a solo startup was 2017, 2018. I left that IoT security company, founded my own company doing a personal finance app. So I was a one-man show though. So I developed the app myself, did all the marketing, actually had a YouTube channel, did pretty well on YouTube actually. I think the videos are still up. No one's surfaced those yet, but yeah.
Wait, when you get famous.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, the reason I stopped doing that startup, the whole, like, the background of what the company did was basically in the US, there's this situation where, like, there's a big industry for like bad credit lending. So if you have like bad credit because you have a lot of credit card debt or like medical debt, the only way to get out of that is realistically to like consolidate the debt together to like reduce your rates. But the thing is, if you have a bad credit score, the only loans you're going to get are like extremely high interest. So people are in the situation where like they're sort of trapped. So they're just on this like circle to bankruptcy. So what I was trying to do was build like a free way for them to improve their credit. So I had a few systems in place and like few processes to help them do it for free. But the problem with the business is there was really no like financial model. How do you make money off these people? So I had built an application that integrated into their bank accounts. So I could see how much money they had, what they were spending money on. A lot of them had like literally $4 in their bank account. So I was like, how do I charge people with $4 for a product? So the ultimate problem with the business was the incentive model was wrong, which is actually, I think, an interesting tie into crypto because the incentive models can be a little bit different, which we can talk about later. But yeah, that was my first business.
Okay. And that means, so you basically decided to go back to the IoT security after this one didn't work. Okay,
That's
nice,
right.
nice.
Had
So
the
basically
Yep.
you're not a newbie. That's nice. Didn't know that. Very cool. So now we are at Nimble. Nimble, give us the journey which you guys had starting Nimble. And, I will prefix that with the fact that I know that your founder/co-founder, but basically current CEO, worked on different crypto startups before. So we can sort of skip those. I'm interested in the part where you guys got together, all of you, and started Nimble and started with those, the idea of attestations and AI and how it evolved into the unbundling of the AI stack, which you are working on now.
Yeah. So do you want me to tell the story from my perspective or from like the company perspective? Because I could do either.
No, your perspective. Absolutely yours.
Okay. Yeah. So from my perspective, when I was looking for a new job, I think like I gave the background on why I wanted to leave. But basically, when we were building the company from like square one, so it was just the CEO and he wanted me to be the first person to join. And at that time, like we were really trying to just build a team that made sense. Because if you have like very smart, qualified people, like you can probably build something that works really well. So that was really where we were starting out with. And then you always need like an anchor point to the actual technology. So the CEO had written a white paper that's like actually now Nimble's white paper in 2021 around AI. Wow. And that was his background. So we're like, well, let's do something with this. So the first area we tried to get into was intents. So intents are what I was talking to you back in the Dev Connect days in Istanbul. So we had built like an MVP product around intents. It was basically like we fine-tuned a language model to translate like English into transactions on the blockchain. So that was our first kind of application, like our first foray into this. But we had like we weren't like super excited about it, if that makes sense. Like we couldn't really see like how that became like a viable business. So jump forward a little further. We had another member join the team. He's now our CTO. He joined us from Apple search team. And when we talked to him about intents, he just kept saying intents are AI. Like what he did at Apple was like query understanding. So it converts text into like a machine comprehensible format, basically. So he was like, yeah, this is just intents are like a subfield of AI. So what you're doing is AI already. So let's just like make it more generic. So we kind of like pivoted back and expanded out a little bit more. So that's kind of what led to the current narrative. And in actual fact, our tech stack, like the infrastructure side, has not changed. It's still the exact same as we were doing with intents. It's just now it's slightly more abstracted.
I see. Very interesting. Yeah, well, we never talked about the tech stack in Istanbul. because it was kind of a secret. and maybe I would never understand it also.
Honestly, it's a white paper if you're interested. It's just that's like it's not my expertise.
Right. Very cool then. So how many co-founders you officially have in Nimble?
I think there's 4 of us. I think there's officially 4 of us. Yeah.
And the team is the size of now?
There's 5.
5. Okay, wow, it's growing. Look at that. It's basically almost every month one person. Good rate.
We hope to have more people join us pretty soon. We have a pretty extensive roadmap that we need to build out in the next few months. So yeah, I think we're going to need some help.
I think we will get to that. So can you briefly, for non-techies, can you say what Nimble is trying to do right now? Because, we're kind of talking about the future vision, which everybody can read the white paper. I'll put the links into show notes, of course. But it's like, what are you guys trying to do right now?
The simple version of what we do is we basically glue together all of the building blocks of decentralized AI. So you can think of us kind of like an aggregation layer over top of all of the different parts that go into the AI stack. So what you're seeing right now is there's a lot of different like infrastructure players coming onto the scene, more or less, in crypto that are providing just individual components to make AI products. So there's folks who do like compute aggregation. So they'll bring together like a lot of GPUs that can be used for like running and training AI models. There's folks who are bringing together data that's collected from like a distributed set of people. And there's also like a lot of freely available models out there. But the thing about like building AI products is that there's a lot of like basically like pipelining involved in connecting those things up to make it easy to use. So the original story behind like the problem that Nimble solves is in big tech companies like Google, Facebook, Uber, they have internal tooling, basically machine learning platforms that do all of this kind of plumbing work. So if you want to build a very cool AI product and you currently work in one of those tech companies, it's almost as simple as like selecting the compute, selecting the data, choosing the model that you want to retrain, and like hitting a button. So as soon as you leave those tech companies, you lose access to those tools and your job becomes a lot harder because you then have to build up all of that infrastructure. So the infrastructure is really what makes the job easy. So basically, I think a lot of people are seeing like AI as just language models right now, but really AI is in like thousands of products. So my background is IoT security. We did anomaly detection, like that uses like ML models. And the diversity of models that will be coming out in the future will be massive. So the infrastructure itself, the tool that builds the tool, that's what we're making. So I think when people start to like grasp like what can be built with all of this like open data and open compute, I think they'll start to understand what Nimble does a little bit better and like why this makes sense.
Right. So to put it into a little bit more concrete boxes for people who are not, techies, typical AI, pipeline is comprised of basically data. I think everybody kind of understands that. You need some data. Whether you steal them, borrow them, buy them, doesn't matter. Whether they are yours. Then you need some. Everybody keeps saying you need a lot of compute. So basically somebody needs to crunch the stuff and create something out of it. And then there's the layer where people, very smart people, maybe like yourself and your co-founders, create the models, which are basically, ways how you work with the data and what do you try to project forward from whatever you have in the stack below. Is that sort of correct?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And so what you are guys trying to do is basically unbundle these 3 layers and kind of let everybody in on any part of the stack they need or want?
Yeah. The analogy that I was using yesterday is it's like, how you use you use tools to like solve problems, right? So an example of a tool that you use every day is like a washing machine. You bring your clothes to the washing machine, you hit start, and clean clothes come out, right? but the washing machine is made up of like individual parts. So it's like tubes, motors, whatever. So the tubes and the motors, those do not wash your clothes on your own. It's only when those things are put together is your problem solved by the tool. So we build the washing machine and we assemble it from the tubes and motors and stuff.
I'm laughing not because of your analogy. I'm just laughing because I love how the analogies evolve over time. So if you speak with different people, in like a month's time, you get sort of different analogy for a while, and then it switches to something completely different. But washing machine
in time.
Yeah, washing machine is pretty new. I haven't heard it before here. So that's very cool. I think I wanted to ask, so why blockchain? Why crypto? Could you guys do it without blockchains? Is it because crypto is cool, or is it because it adds something very special, like incentives or any other stuff which you couldn't do in different environment?
So if we were to build the exact same Nimble product without the blockchain, the problem is that we would then own all of the data. So basically, like,
that makes sense.
The main benefit is
nice.
Data can come from anywhere.
And very simple, straightforward answer.
Yeah. I mean, if you're good with that, we can move on.
I'm good with that. I think it kind of sums it up. Of course, there are a lot of other angles where blockchain can be useful, but this one is good for me. So now, probably a little bit, I wanted to ask a futuristic question, but I will continue asking about the current state of things. Because I know things in the Discord are heating up. Everybody's curious about, when token, when launch, when mining, when whatever. What's the current state of things?
The current state of things is that the network is largely done. So we're basically just testing our mainnet ahead of the formal release. Wonderful. So we're going to call this like the phase 1 of the mainnet, because the final vision, like the washing machine vision, that won't come in like full form until probably later this year. But what we're going to support when mainnet launches is fine tuning of AI models. So basically, you can think of it like you provide your gaming computer to us, and we will match make a model that requires fine tuning into your gaming machine. So you just volunteer your compute to us, and we find someone who needs compute. So we're like a compute marketplace. Over time, the rest of the vision will come together.
So you guys are starting with compute. Nice. I think I probably wrote a tweet about it, but I saw somewhere, it was probably on the Discord or on Twitter, that you guys will support also like relatively low-end machinery, let's say, Mac chips, M1s, M2s. Is that because you are based in Silicon Valley, or people worked at Apple, or is it because they are really useful?
So Mac chips are a lot more powerful than people realize, I think.
Okay.
So there's like a lot of like GPU cores in each of these Mac chips that can be used for mining. So the reason we're able to support like lower end machines is because we don't just like give the entire model over to each individual GPU. We basically divide it up among potentially like tens or hundreds of machines. So for training in particular, like latency actually doesn't really matter. So when people are training a model, especially like the kind of like lower end people, or not people, but like the lower end models that we're expecting to use the network, their primary concern is cost. It's not necessarily speed. So the cost of, we were talking to someone earlier today, they said the cost of fine tuning their Llama model was about $10,000. So if you can save potentially like reduce a zero off the cost of that, like you may be willing to wait a little bit longer if it's not like a business critical thing. So for like scientists or like researchers, they probably would be willing to take a little bit more time with training.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious whether, it's a marketing tactic or it's actual real use case.
They're legit.
They're legit. Okay, good. Even if you would say it's a marketing tactic and we'll use them just, very little, I would still consider it like a good move, honestly, because because it will attract a lot of attention. It's like not everybody is a gamer, and not everybody wants to buy a server rack. Not everybody is mining, but if you even if you just say it, people get interested, even though they will probably they may never install the software and run it, actually do the mining. They will get interested. They will listen, like, what's going on, why. So I think from that perspective, it's going to be a massive breakthrough. And I'm speaking from experience. I have a lot of friends, mostly Mac fans, and when I talk about crypto, they basically fall asleep. But when I mentioned that there is a project working on the intersection of AI and blockchain, and that they could mine with their M2s, everyone got interested. It's like, really? What is that? What is AI? What is blockchain? Mine, really?
I didn't realize we had that kind of appeal. Honestly, we just ran a poll and we were like, what would you like to mine with? I expected people to be more interested in mining with like older graphics cards, like GTX 1080, because that's, I think, what people were mining with a lot, like in the older days, back all through like the last few hype cycles. So that's what I expected. So the interest in Mac is kind of surprising.
Right. Well, I think, so from, again, the friends which I have who were mining anything, they are pretty up to speed. If you do mining well, you kind of make the money. Right. So they have probably the most expensive machines you can have, the newest ones, and they always sell the old ones to someone. So yeah, that makes total sense. So it basically means you guys will have your own token economy as well, because you are building typical L1, right? It's not a roll up on Ethereum or anything else.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to be a standalone blockchain. You can think of us like an AI app chain, because we are based on Cosmos. So that's the easiest way to think about what we're doing. It's not a roll up. We have opinions about what roll ups are, so which I will not mention. But yeah, I think like layer one is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you are planning to do a lot of stuff, so it will be kind of annoying to be dependent on someone else. So does it mean that the token and everything around it will basically launch together with the mainnet, right?
That's right. That's right. We're launching the network. So you can think of the network as the token, I suppose. One thing that people ask about is like, will I be able to sell it? And the answer is no. So when we launch the network, there will be no transfer functionality. So people will be able to mine the tokens, but they won't be able to give them to other people or sell them. So they're like effectively locked.
Right. That makes sense. I think, Helium was like that. A lot of deep-in projects have it like that. So, first you get a device or you do mine something, and later on, you'll figure out how the liquidity will happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully will happen.
Yeah. Honestly, the Helium analogy, I think, is really, really good. So like Helium provided obviously like connectivity, but I think like mining for connectivity is very analogous to mining for data, because you don't necessarily need like a huge amount of compute to mine for data. All you need to do is like periodically like sample something. So the example, like weather is a good example of like data that has like obvious value, but one that people don't really realize is like the security angle, because like your network is always generating traffic. Like you may have, like, if you're a reasonably like tech forward person, you may have like 100 IoT devices in your house, and each of those things, they send like a packet like every few minutes. But if those things are compromised, they'll suddenly start sending packets that are like unexpected. And that kind of information is like super valuable to researchers. So basically like your house is like a potential like treasure trove of like valuable data for people. So in like the same like Helium analogy, you can basically sell the data from your home, and then suddenly you're a data miner. And you actually don't need high-end devices at all for that particular use case. So I think that's really where the innovation is going to be in the next like AI cycle, is less in like the main compute area. Because I mean, compute is basically a commodity. Like anyone can go buy a 4090, and like they're selling the same 4090 like that I have versus that you have. minus some like minor differences for location. So the actual like cool bit is the data. That's where the scarcity comes in. So my examples are all from security because that's where I was from. But like
I can see
there was like a huge like expansion in like data dependent like big data companies back in like 2012 kind of thing. And I think all of those companies are going to be disrupted by this kind of thing. So I'm very excited to see what's going to come out actually.
Mm-hmm. So am I. So you were one of the first projects in a long time, I think, where when I heard you talk about it on your podcast, or maybe it was, AMA somewhere, when I looked at the website and the documents, it kind of all made sense and it matched together. You have a lot of projects where, the founder talks about the project, it totally makes sense. And then you go and look at the website and it's like the esoteric bubble bullshit, which you can't really pierce through. And in the documents, it doesn't really say anything. And so you're like, well, I don't know. The guy looks like, he knows what he's talking about, but this says something which is not really that. So points for clarity, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, something that helps is just that we're moving very fast. So our guys worked in like pretty aggressive startups. So we just go hard. when you move fast, there isn't really time to be inconsistent or to like get distracted by other random narratives. Like we're doing one narrative. There's no distractions available to us because we must get to our target.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. So tell me what's coming up if there is a timeline. So we already mentioned that you guys want to launch, I think, the mainnet in March with the compute part. Are there any other milestones which are kind of, set in timeline or not really? I don't want to,
The second timeline that I would say is a little more assured is the inferencing side of the network. So short term, we're going to have just like the fine tuning component. But the models will basically be dictated by us. So in the future, we hope to basically open it up so anyone can provide their model. Right. And then we will open it up eventually to basically do inferencing on those models. So the training side, we were mentioning like the latency doesn't matter as much. For inferencing, it does. Like you don't want to be typing into ChatGPT and waiting 10 minutes. So you actually need like higher performance machines for that. So those two pieces to make it a little more interactive will be coming out in a little bit.
And when we say a little bit, you mean like first half of the year or 2024?
Oh, like a couple more months.
Couple of more months. Okay, let's say first half. That's fair enough. And it was actually my next question was like, which part of the stack you guys want to create your own apps in? So I think you kind of answered it. All right, cool. Now, I know you have an interesting name on Discord. Can you explain me the name and the dog picture?
The dog picture is my dog. So
Gotcha.
Actually, I had that picture drawn for my wife and it was stolen. So I've never seen the physical version of that picture. So it's just my dog. But the name is actually a word my father made up when I was 5 years old. And I have used it for my username ever since. So it's just, it is what it is. It means nothing. It's just a noise.
I see. How do you pronounce it? I was intentionally avoiding it.
Verbable.
Verbable? Okay. Fair enough.
It's not a good sounding word even. It's just like, it stuck with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's a good word in the sense that, when you see it, you don't have to read it to kind of understand that this is the word. There is a lot of like names where you actually have to read it because it's kind of similar to everything else, like, 0x, whatever, something. So you have to focus. But for yours, you can just scroll the feed and then here it is. That's Antoni.
It's scannable.
It's very scannable, very scannable. Look, probably one last question because we are hitting the 30 minutes. What are the projects? What are the other projects in the space which you guys are excited about and would like to work with? Because, I think we talked about it before. There's a lot of AI sort of related projects. And
Yeah.
it makes sense that you would work with some of them.
So none of the partnerships are public.
I see.
So I won't state that there's anything in stone, but I think the projects that are doing something interesting. First one is IONET. So they're basically aggregating compute. So they can basically provide like very low cost compute for training. So I think that's a very interesting application, and it's something that we will probably try to tie into in order to serve models. So once our network proceeds and we have a lot of demand for model training, we can pass that demand over to IONET. The other project I'm interested in talking to is Aether. So Aether is interesting because they do something kind of similar to IONET, but they have a lot of like very, very high-end graphics cards available to them. So like H100 graphics cards, the ones that are like $30,000.
Nice.
So they can do more like high-end inferencing. So like, again, if you want to run like a large language model and you need like high performance, you can then pass it to them. So I think we're kind of seeing like the market like segment out and become a little bit more comprehensible. And yeah, I think both of those are very good partners for us. Yeah, that's on the compute side. Yeah, I think those are the ones that I'm more excited about and talking to, or not talking to, but could be talking to.
Could be good. Right. Okay. And any projects on the data side? Honestly, I'm just asking because I have no real idea if anybody's like aggregating any data on like blockchain side to feed AI or not. But you would know.
There are projects who are aggregating data, but the thing is, they're focusing on language data. And I think focusing on language data is very much missing the point of this entire thing that we're doing here. So like anyone can scrape the internet for data, right? Like it's available to any of us. That's the whole point. But like that's not niche. If something is not scarce, it does not have value. So like scraping takes some time for sure. It takes some compute, but that's like not super valuable. So there are projects doing that, and that data will be important, but that data is not the key value. So I'm actually working with some folks from my past who have built data collectors before to see if they can build us an open source data collector very similar to the Helium idea. So these are like hardware product managers who I've worked with before and who are currently employed in like hardware tech companies. I can't mention names because they're still working there. But my goal is to poach someone like that and have them build us something like this. So you could basically set up a collector in your house. So we're basically trying to like seed this and give people the idea, because like to your point, people need to like see stuff working in order to really get it. And yeah, I think we can do that by building a couple things ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, it sounds actually pretty exciting, at least from where I sit. And I think, you know, it's one of these things, if you're building anything like a protocol or, you know, L1, if you want to speed things up, you have to build stuff yourself to showcase what it can do, because it's really hard to get otherwise people interested in doing that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you could probably pay them with tokens, but that's very short-sighted, I think. So building is probably a better way to do it. Okay, cool. Is there anything which I missed? I mean, something you wanted to talk about, you wanted to get out to the public about Nimble, yourself, your dog? Which I forgot to ask about.
Honestly, I think this was really good. The main thing that I try to get out in these conversations is the data side and the scarcity side. Because I think when people understand like that these things become like highly segmented and can be applied to like real industry, I think they will start to understand the value a little bit better. I've been trying to communicate this to people, but I think they're slowly starting to catch on that like, oh, this opportunity might not just be like more tokens. This might be like real business value. And the data side, in my view, will be that real business value. So that's something that I'm trying to communicate to people better in a way that they understand. So,
well, I think it's a marathon in that sense,
right?
Probably also because you know, a lot of people, how AI is built is not really common knowledge, I think, right now. So a lot of people, even from like tech backgrounds, get surprised when, I send them the Karpathy's video, how LLMs are trained. And they're like, oh, there's several steps. It's not just ChatGPT. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. But you actually brought one last question from my side. So what we talked about, most of our conversation looked a lot like B2C. Are you guys planning to work with the businesses on like B2B side? Because it probably would make a lot of sense as well.
So we'll be a B2B product. So people will build us into their tech stack. So we kind of describe ourselves to like Web 2 tech people as like decentralized Snowflake, if you know what Snowflake is. Mm-hmm. So you guys get it, but I don't know if everyone will. But the idea is you build us into your tech stack. We become invisible to the consumer, but the consumer is ultimately using infrastructure.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to get up. It's going to be basically a B2B thing. Perfect. Yeah. Well, Antoni, thank you very much. It was great having you on and hearing what Nimble is doing. I think you are one of these guests which I would love to have on the show, later on, say, after a year or half year, to see, how things moved forward and what has changed in the world. But for now, thank you very much. And everybody else, go subscribe. No, don't miss the next episodes. And I'll see you in a week. Bye. Thanks a lot. And that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to connect with my guest, or if you're interested in some of the points that were discussed today, just check the show notes for links. And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. Also, if you are compelled, please leave a review. It helps others to find the podcast, and you can surely share it with your friends to save them the trouble of discovery process. I definitely hope you would do that for me. One more thing, from January 2024, there is an option for the interested collectors to mint the episode or just the episode's art, which is always uniquely created by me for each guest and project. So go check the show notes to find out more. Until next time, keep it colorful and stay positive, friends. Ciao.